I am joined today by Alistair Shop. Hello, Alistair.
Hi, Andy.
Now, we're here talking about, my notes here, Lighthouse Homes. We want to get into that just a bit more about your life and your faith. But just give us a really simple overview. What is Lighthouse Homes all about?
Lighthouse Homes is a supported housing charity set up by churches together in Rotherham in 2000. And I think they signed the documents in 2003. But they started offering homes to people that were homeless from 2005. And it's grown and grown over 20 years. We're celebrating our 20th year this year. And now we have 116 beds. We'll have 116 beds available tonight, of which I think about 112 will be filled with people who would otherwise be homeless. So that's what we do.
So it's helping people who basically are literally homeless. They have nowhere to live, and you're then providing, I guess, through a network of help and support, which I would assume would also go beyond just here's a bed for the night.
Yes, I mean, we work within a framework of housing benefit, which is called supported housing, whereby we have to offer, and we do offer, care, support and supervision is the legal term. So we have 4 projects and with full-time 24/7 staff cover. And we offer people everything from, just 24/7 presence. We regular welfare checks every day, and right through to helping people get to register with doctors and dentists. And we help people get back into employment, the whole skill, getting into churches if necessary, other groups if that's what they prefer. And about a third of our staff, of which we're about 35, 36, depending on what time of the year, they work for us. They come and work for us through a program of development, and that's been very successful. So we build 4 communities, I guess, funded through housing benefit, and the money that they have themselves, either through housing benefit or little bits of work, they contribute as well financially to that. So it's currently 4 therapeutic communities, really, based around the Christian faith, but no one has to. There's no obligation. And we like to have a place where people feel able to discuss what they can believe and do believe, and also what they don't believe. It's a key part of what we do.
Which I think is actually important in today's society, to actually have the right to say, I think this and I don't think that. And to be able to discuss what we believe is really precious, but to be able to discuss what we don't believe, actually, I think in some ways is even more beneficial in today's society.
Well, I think you've got to do that. I think that's a good thing about our society, rather than assuming that people believe or are on track. And I think that's a mistake. I never like being assumed about myself. And we just, for part of treating people with dignity, which is one of the 5 things that we offer all our residents, is taking what they think and believe seriously, but sharing what we as Christians have discovered.
Which is a really good thing to do. Let's move back a little bit about your own discovery of Jesus. What was your Christian faith like growing up? Was it something that you grew into? Was it a Christian family home? How did you first encounter, I guess, both Christianity and also then, of course, Jesus?
Well, I grew up. I'm the son of a manse. You see, my father was a Methodist minister. I'm also a Methodist minister as well now, even though the job I've been given by the church or allowed to do is this CEO job at Lighthouse Homes, and I think I'm 4th generation Methodist leader. So we're very much part of that Christian tradition, and the evangelical wing of the Methodist Church is a very important part to us. Cliff College, our training centre up there, was a big part of my life growing up. So Christ wasn't really, from a very early age, he was a normal part of our home life, and Sunday was God's day, and I expected to be representing Christ even at school, and I understood that, and didn't always find that very easy. But I did, not perfectly, but I did. So, but I guess what happened then is over the years, my life, first thing I would do when I moved anywhere, I would go to church. Then at university, I went to find a church and found some tremendous friends, really, really great friends and lifetime friends. In fact, I'm going on holiday with 3 of them in a few weeks' time. We all met as Christians at university together. So my understanding grew as I actually paid attention in church to some of the sermons and started doing my own reading and my own Bible study, and then I remember I was about in the early 20s, my wife and I, we started a young adults group in our church, which just this huge number of young people had turned up. Nobody in the church has seen that for 50 years. So we thought we would just have them in our house, and we just started going through the Bible together, and that gave me a real appetite and knowledge of the Bible, realized what I hadn't been taught. And I grew and grew and grew, and then eventually I had I suppose, a profound experience. I've been working in industry for a dozen years or so, and realized that wasn't really very fulfilling. Successful, but not fulfilling. So I guess the shorthand is saying I responded to a call to full-time Christian work, and offered to work for the Methodist Minister. So I came back from Canada, which I was at the time, and offered to be a Methodist Minister, which they accepted that. So I'll remain that now, and I'm proud to be one of those. But just a few years ago, I took the opportunity that came to be a Methodist minister working in this one large project. That was about 4 years ago. But I had been chairman of the board for nearly almost the full 20 years.
It's not something you didn't. Well, it's like the best bits of life sometimes get a little bit less simple, I think. I mean, we all like life to be simple, but when it gets a bit messy, a bit complicated, there's some beautiful stuff that can be born out of that, isn't there?
With hindsight, yes, but at the time, you wish it was a bit simpler, don't you?
Yes. Let's just leave that one there. So you moved into looking after Lighthouse Homes. What was the move like? I mean, you've been on the board, you sort of get obviously a clear understanding at that level of some of the needs, some of the work, whatever. But what made you want to switch into being, I suppose, more hands-on? I would think that if you're chairman, you can kind of come and go a little bit on the board, and you can kind of think, well, have a bit of involvement. When you're managing it in the capacity you are now, there's a much more direct involvement, isn't there?
Well, yes, I have to fix all. Ultimately, I'm responsible for making sure all the problems are fixed. And yes, it's very, very hands-on. Well, I always loved being on the sites when I was the chairman. We had some tremendous leaders and managers over the years, and I was, I suppose, their boss. But it was really a joint Christian ministry, trying to be very highly professional, highly good at the business side, which is what my background was before I came into the church, very good at the loving side, which I hope managed to do as a pastor as well. And we stuck to our Christian faith. It's easy to drop that. In some ways, it can be easier to drop it. But we've just never felt that was a good move. How can it be if it's true? Why would we want to if it's true and real? So we've kept onto that. The move really became, I had just come to the third appointment in the Methodist Church, and I knew I had one left. And before I retired, I guess. So this one came up exactly at the time I was considering whether to stay where I was in Cornwall or to move on somewhere else. And with certain domestic pressures, or we had some elderly parents to consider, and everything just fell into place. When we talk in the Christian faith, don't about God opening doors and closing other doors or opening windows. Well, everything just fell into place, really. And this project, which I've loved since the day I first met one of the managers, and I've been involved almost every part of it, I thought, wow, what a lovely thing to be able to do, to actually throw everything I've got in my last big job and just give it everything I've got, rather than worrying about it all day long is what I used to do. Now I can do something about it.
What made you first get involved then? I mean, you talked about loving it since you first saw it. What was it about this particular project of caring for people who have no home of their own? What drew you to wanting to be a part of, I suppose, solving that issue that we see?
Well, the biggest issue is that I can't ignore the way that Jesus talked about the homeless, the poor. I just can't ignore that. And I guess I work for a church whose mission statement is compelled by Christ's love, which is from 2 Corinthians chapter 5. And I guess that's the case. You know, I mean, I'd given up an industrial business career to work for the church for similar reasons. But as soon as I started looking about what we do in the church, I just felt there's more we could and should be done. So my boss at the time, the superintendent, who's still a good friend of mine, he he bumped into someone who just getting this thing going, and it wasn't going particularly well. The business side of it was not working. And he said, why don't you come and meet our staff team? We got a lot of skills in the room. So in came a man called Darren, and Darren came in and told us for half an hour with real passion what they were trying to do in Rotherham. I was a minister in Rotherham at the time, just started really. And I just got, to be honest, I got angry. I got angry that it was so badly run. And I just thought, this is not right. How can we treat someone like him, and how can we not be doing? And I thought, well, that's not difficult to fix. So at the end of the meeting, my dear friend Sean said to me, like, what, do you fancy going down there for a bit and doing a little bit of consultancy and see if you can help them out? Well, I'm still doing that now. 20 years. That was about 17, 18 years ago.
A little bit of righteous anger, I think, sometimes can go quite a long way, because I think there's this attitude, isn't there, of as Christians, we're supposed to be all calm and peaceful and all that sort of stuff. And there is a lovely piece of scripture that we should be known for being peaceable. Absolutely. But sometimes that stuff grows within us. And I really do believe sometimes it's God saying, yeah, well, it's not good, is it? It's not right. And there is that righteous anger that can grow and say, this isn't okay. Actually, and I can do something. And I love how God doesn't just allow us to wallow in feeling angry or disappointed or whatever. Actually enables us to do something, because Jesus was a man of doing.
Well, he's a man of anger as well on occasions, but it's what you do about it, isn't it? I mean, you can sit and moan. I mean, plenty of people moan and don't do anything, and I've never been impressed with that as an approach to anger. Passion is a good thing, isn't it? There's many references to Jesus, especially when you see the Greek. Jesus beside himself, or he was angry and stirred, all these things. So, yeah, I mean, I don't follow the Robert Powell version of Jesus. I follow what Scripture actually says about him, how he was remembered. That's what I'm really passionate about, how Jesus was remembered. So it's what you do about it. And I have, from that day on, never felt I had permission to put this project down. And we had many involved. We started a lot of things involved. It was a very, very fruitful period, all of which I've put down, from moving away or handing on to other people or closing down in one case because it wasn't working. This one, can't let go of it. Haven't got permission to yet.
I love that sentiment, though. I heard somebody once talk about when God gives you a vision to do something, whatever you do, never, ever just give it to somebody else. If God's given you the vision, he's given you the vision for a reason and a purpose. So don't put it down. Don't set it down. Let it go until God says not to. And I love the way you're wording that you've never been given permission to put this down, which I think is beautiful.
Thank you. Well, that's the reality. You know, I mean, a phrase we use a lot is the truth sets us free. When it's when you're investigating something or trying to work something out, well, what's the absolute truth here? Yeah. And we have this childlike belief that the absolute truth is the only currency that works. When we're producing press releases, when we have to explain something when something's gone wrong, when there may be a social services visit or whatever, just the truth. Just tell the truth. Absolute rigorous truth, because sometimes we punish ourselves as Christians as well. So we want the rigorous, honest truth. And the simple truth for me is I've never felt, I mean, often it's been heartbreaking, frustrating, soul destroying. But the vast majority of it has been an absolute privilege and worthwhile. That's the real issue, Andy. I think it's, I spent years in industry making other rich people a bit richer. And I think now we spend our time rescuing people. And I can't read the gospel any other way. Salvation means rescue. We don't even like the word salvation. We prefer the word rescue. And you don't have to explain that to our residents. They understand concepts of rescue and heartache and damage and poor in spirit, all this stuff we have to spend weeks doing Bible studies on in the church to a privileged, predominantly middle class, older clientele. You ain't got to explain that. You ain't got to explain that to our guys. Just get the right words, look them in the eye, give them some stability and some dignity, some genuine friendship, and it's a privilege, meaningful.
Yeah, exactly. Genuine friendship. I just wanted to pick up on that you just said. How do you show genuine friendship to somebody who, paint a picture for us who don't know about this, and I put my hand up one of them, I know a tiny bit of some. Paint a picture of somebody who first encounters you. What kind of place are they in their life in order then to be able to access what it is you can help them with?
Well, they have to be homeless. They usually now, because of the way the funds work, they need to. They're generally on some kind of serious benefits, and virtually all our people have an issue with what we call a life controlling substances, which is usually drugs or almost universally alcohol. But also it can be abusive relationships, both men and women. We have about a quarter of our residents are women. So people tend to come because they've got nowhere else to go, and they are sick to death of what's been going on. Not everybody. Some come in and because they just want to run away from something. But no one really wants to live in a homeless shelter, although we offer a lot more than that. But that's what often they come thinking, oh, heck. But then again, also, that we've got a bit of a reputation now around this world, this industry, this culture. And a lot of people have been through a number of different rehabs, especially Christian ones. And we are distinct. We have our own distinctive nature, but there are plenty of very, very good ones around. So people would come to us sometimes thinking, well, I need a bit more freedom. We don't have a set program. You don't come in and the clock starts ticking and you have to be out by 12 months having graduated. Some brilliant places do that. And I know why. And I think it's the right thing for certain people. We, however, we give people a home for as long as it takes, is what we say, for as long as it takes. So we have one lad who's been with us, he's 81. He's been with us 13 years. Another gentleman's been with us 9 years this year. They won't live anywhere else. They won't be able to. But they fall through the cracks in other systems. So we find a way of looking after them, keeping them out of hospital, keeping them out of prison. So what you find is that people will come in with a number of life-controlling issues, and we give them jobs to do the minute they arrive. They have things to do because you live in a community, and we have a nice, simple 5-word phrase. The first thing we give them is stability, so they can get whatever benefits or work or contact with family or other support networks. We give them some stability where they're going to be every night. It's exhausting not knowing where you're going to be every night, even if you're on a mate's sofa. So stability, and then we give them dignity, because we're not shocked by any of the stories. None of them have shocked us, not anymore. And we had a wonderful volunteer for years, and she would say, I could tell how they were coming on by, they used to come in with their heads down, and then they'd start to head up, and then they'd meet you in the eye, and they'd talk to you. She used to go in 2-3 times a week to feed them. And I thought that was a good picture. That's what dignity does to people. It raises their heads and their ability to speak. And then we give them or help them to have genuine friendship within other residents, within staff. And then we hope to see them mix with other groups or volunteering. And then we want to give them a sense of purpose. Of course, that is where our faith often comes in. But there are other elements of purpose, just finding a way to enjoy themselves in life. A lot of our residents have serious issues like anxiety and mental health issues. They're very, very real. And often alcohol is what they use as their solution. So we try and find a different solution for them. And the last thing is a plan for independent, stronger living, to not return to the same thing. So stability, dignity, friendship, purpose, plan, as long as it takes.
I love it. As long as it takes. I've forgotten the name of the ministry. They'll forgive me. Chatting to someone in Manchester doing some similar work to what you're doing, but he had a very, very similar way of looking at it, because he said, look, these people, they're not necessarily going to be off you go again kind of people. We do try and get them out within a certain time, but then again, some of them, they're not ready. When we think, okay, here's your 3-year or whatever it was going to be, they need a bit more support, or because, like you say, that if you're only struggling with being controlled in your life by alcohol, that isn't necessarily what we think. It isn't as simple as we think, because probably there is other stuff, but maybe that's the one that's the most obvious thing. And when you get past that bit, then there's all little layers you start to peel back like layers of an onion until you actually get past all the sort of the dead skin, if you like, to get to the real core of the human and the heart.
Yeah, absolutely. Alcohol isn't the problem. The problem is that alcohol has been the solution.
Yeah,
that's the problem. So, of course, when they're with us, and no alcohol's allowed on site, no drugs are allowed on site, very strict on that. Eventually, other issues start to surface, and you and I have plenty of problems, right? So, but fortunately, we have been set free from that for a number of reasons. In my case, it's always that Christ has been the heart of the things I've been set free from, or frankly avoided, steered away from, which was frankly the best way in most of these things. But we then are willing to work with people with any of these things. But sometimes, though, when they get better, then we aren't the right place for them. So the plan is sometimes to move them somewhere else, because one of the tragedies is that we get people working well in communal living, which is a challenge. Even student houses, educated, trained, young, dynamic, middle-class people, they often don't function very well. We ask these people, our residents, to live in a therapeutic community, and do you know what? Most of them do. And then we say, right, you're doing really well. Oh, go off, live by yourself. Well, I'm not sure that's really the right way. So there are other charities that we talk to and refer people on to. We try and keep them in touch with us. We really like it when they work for us. That works really well, but that takes a long time because the work is demanding. But that's what we try and do. We don't want to drop them and throw them out. We, exactly as you said, we want to love them. Yeah.
I don't know why this memory's coming back, but I'll share it. Maybe it'll spark something for you. But I remember I had an accident when cycling one day when I was about 13, 14. Came off my bike. Somebody had overtaken me as I was turning right. Not a great situation. So I was off school for several weeks. But what I discovered was the pain that I was feeling was not the only pain that I was feeling, but the pain that I was feeling was the most painful. And as I started to heal, I would then sense other pain around my body. And as that would heal and start to diminish, now I spotted the next one. So the most painful thing is the only thing I could think of, which for me is my kidneys, because they got quite severely bruised. So what I thought was I've got bruised kidneys, and I didn't care about the rest because I didn't feel the rest. But once that started to heal, the bruising came down, the swelling reduced, the painkillers did what they needed to do and all that stuff. Then I'd realize, I've got a pain in my back and it's a different pain, and my leg really hurts. Now there's a bruise, didn't even know that was there. Because as one big pain is released or removed or reduced, now the next biggest pain starts to rear its head. But I'm imagining that's kind of what's coming in when they're saying, I'm addicted to drugs. Well, yes, maybe, but maybe there's more behind that. And actually, as you start to deal with one thing, then I suppose, God willing, there's a cascade of good improvement.
Yes, I think that's, the cascade, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There's the Andy B's cascade of pain and problems. So yes, I think you're spot on there. What is interesting, I was speaking at I was on a call for the local authority, the team of people who look after homelessness issues for the borough, and they asked me, what is the biggest issue with you? And again, I just always, the truth is what we go for. I don't try and think what's the best political thing to say here or whatever. I said the truth is that we have, and I know a little bit about the language that's being used, is the increasing complexity of needs that people present to us. So we would have, when we started, we'd say, right, this is an alcoholic. They need to get off alcohol, and then they'll be sorted out. Well, now our biggest issue is that it's far more complex than that. Exactly as you're saying, that we look at an injured cyclist, but actually turns out he's got A, B, C, D, E, and that's what we're finding. Now, often they come and it's very open how they are. So they're addicted to prescription drugs, big issue. They're addicted to alcohol or using alcohol to numb anxiety. Well, why have they got serious anxiety? Well, then we uncover all the other issues that go back into childhood and recent past. So we are finding now that either the people have greater complexity of needs that come to us, or we're all aware of them. And I don't know which that is, but I don't care. We're still going to serve them and learn and train the staff to be aware and loving for these things. When I said this at that meeting, I thought they'd say I was overreacting. They all went, yeah, we're the same. And right round the room, all the homeless provision in the borough of Rotherham said, that's our big issue.
So it's not just dealing with one. And I guess that's partly why we look at a problem, we think, oh, we can't solve it, so we don't do anything, or we think, well, is there something else I can do that's a bit easier to deal with? But we do need people who are, and I'll use the word courageous, enough to dive in and say, okay, well, we can't fix everything, but let's fix this bit, and then let's see
Yes,
where we go.
that's, I think, where we've got things right. We know what we're good at. And over 20 years, we've learned also what we're not good at. So we stopped doing them because there are better people than us. And we're actually very focused on everyone. We now define ourselves as low to medium complexity of needs. And we're very good at identifying people that fall out either side of that. There are some that don't really need to be in our kind of operation. So we gently ask them to go somewhere more suitable, because otherwise there's too much money being paid for them, because we're not a cheap service, but we're not expensive either, but we're not a cheap service that we offer for the government. But also there are those who, frankly, one member of staff with a project of 17 men by themselves on a Friday night. I'm not having people with certain needs coming in who are disruptive and dangerous. It's not fair on that member of staff. We've been very blessed to avoid major crises, and we've dealt with the worst ones well so far. So thank the Lord for that. But we can't deal with violent people. We can't. We don't want to. We're not going to deal with them. We don't deal with people who have serious offences, sexual offences or arson offences. We don't deal with that. But there's plenty of people who don't fall into that category that need our care, compassion, and supervision.
It's very easy, isn't it, to think about what we can't do. I think the church is known for what we don't want you to do and what we can't do and shouldn't do, but actually what we do is far more valuable. And the people that you're serving, I don't think they're going to care much what you don't do. I think they do care about what you are doing, because that's giving them that care and that provision, that dignity, that friendship, which, I mean, the stability is such a key. Whenever I've spoken to, I've met a few people who deal with homeless folk in one way or another. But the one thing that always comes up is that stability, because when you don't have an address, so much stability is prevented from you, lost from you. I shared this before. I was in a bank trying to sort out something for one of my sons, and there was a guy who very clearly homeless, wasn't hard to see because he was shouting it, and he wanted to cash a check from a member of family. It was like 500 quid or something. I want my money. And the person in the bank said, but you can't have it. You haven't got an account. Give me an account. You don't have an address. Yeah, but I want my money. And it got more and more hostile. And you could think, okay, well, get an address. What's the problem? But that's where stability comes in, because if you're homeless, you don't have an address, you can't get an address without an address. So that's a big catch-all for an awful lot of people.
Yeah, you can't get access to the full range of NHS services unless you have a register with a GP. So the first thing we do is get them registered with a local GP, and we end up with a good relationship with them because they want to do a good job and they want to get it right. We get them to know where the local pharmacist is, because many of them are still on methadone or other prescription medication. So we just need to stabilise their life and protect them, because sometimes they have anger issues, and so we've got somebody at the minute who basically falls out really easily with the people that are trying to help them. So we found a volunteer who's going to coach them on how to stop doing that, and then actually they haven't got to travel 20 miles to get a basic prescription. They can get one from down the road. We've just banned them. But we're going to put some work into that, and that'll be a huge issue to help that person to live a normal life. And it's also a blessing for that church, who used to be in one of my churches in Rotherham, which she still is. I'm not. I've moved. But she is tremendous, really patient, loving, kind, sensible person, and she'll be perfect to help.
We think about the homeless situation in the UK. Let's just England. Let's keep it really localized. We think about the situation because I'm living in England. And I'm thinking, well, how do I possibly help? We can throw money at a charity and say, well, you do something. But what is something that each one of us can do that isn't limited to just donating to somebody who can? What is it that each of us actually could do daily basis, perhaps, or once a week or once a month? What can we actually do ourselves to help people who are homeless, who meet on the street?
Yes, well, I get asked that a lot, and I have a fairly controversial position on this. Is that the truth is that no one needs to be homeless in this country, really. It's what they're prepared. I mean, we've never full. So I have 4 or 5 vacancies today. The issue is not is there nowhere to go? It's what they're willing to do to get a place. Now, it's complicated. It's more complicated than that. And some people do get very emotionally damaged and are hiding. And there are deep trauma where people can be hiding. So I think the best thing to know is to know your local. There are plenty of places like us, and know them as a Christian. And I think you can point people towards us. I think that does actually sometimes have an impact when a number of people being referred to or self-referred because other churches or other Christians have said, well, why not try the Lighthouse? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, it's by and large not a good idea to give them money because, and I learned that from the lads themselves. What we tend to be doing there is enabling problems. But what I do find is that meet their eye, say hello, treat them like a human being, but don't patronize them either. Don't go, because I obviously when I'm walking out, I'll just say, sorry, mate, I can't help you today. And if it's right and appropriate, sometimes I will point them to us. But I live a long way from Rotherham at the minute. So I think it's you treat people with dignity and respect and meet them in the eye and don't be embarrassed about that. They don't like being treated like dirt or as if they don't exist. And the one thing I know is that Christ spoke to people that he met, responded to people that shouted to him. But, they had to respond back. They had to accept what Jesus offered to them. And I think that's probably our way of doing it. However, homelessness is the tip of the iceberg of the issue. And one thing I wouldn't recommend is take them into your own home, because you do not know what you're bringing in. We have to be careful. We have 35 staff, and one person can drop a bomb in one of our, not literally, but can be an emotional and bomb within our communities, which are well trained and well prepared. So I don't think that's the, but you can point them to people who are well trained, well prepared, and know what they are doing. But treat with dignity. I think that's the short I would do. And by the way, I think you can give money regularly to places like ours. I have to tell you, most churches are not that interested.
Which sadly does not surprise me, unfortunately.
Well, I don't know. I mean, they're interested in other stuff, which is fine. Charities move in a cycle, but we're very popular at Christmas, I have to tell you. I mean, we're no shortage of tinned goods in December. And that's great. And we love all that. But I mean, I think if people were to give regularly a small amount, that would be a really good thing to a local homeless charity. But a homeless charity that gets at the root causes and looks after the person and doesn't just provide, a bed for the night, for example. When we started, just before I arrived, they would scoop up people from the streets of Rotherham, give them a meal, tell them about Jesus whether they liked it or not, give them a bed, a cooked breakfast in the morning, and then chuck them out again. And you can probably write your own script on what happened there. And they just saw the sermon as the price of a bed and breakfast. That's what they saw, which is good value. It's a very transactional world, living on the street, very transactional. So we stopped that because all we were doing was creating a group. There was a time where we worked out that if you looked at all the various Christian charities, you could live 7 days a week getting free food, and you probably get enough beds to survive. And we were just making things worse, not better. So we changed that.
Yes, we like just to deliver stuff, don't we? We see that at a very much governmental level. We deliver this package and this plan and everything's going to get better. And it might for some, but of course we're all individuals, and the idea of a group fix, it just never works in society. It just doesn't. We need to actually treat people as individuals.
That's right. And we work, and you have to work together. I think a lot of the times we are prompted and feel guilty or remorseful or sad, pity. And that's a mixture of good and bad emotions when we see people in need. For me, I don't think this ministry is for everyone. I was surprised it was for me. I only went in to do the business side. I didn't think I would actually engage with the residents. I didn't think that was going to be ever my thing. My experience of people in town centres have been frightening, actually, as a child and even as a student. And I would ask people to leave if they were disrupting other things. I had no problem with that. So I wasn't nervous or scared, but I was far more scared when I realized that Jesus had called me to not just sort out the business side of it, but actually to engage with these gentlemen and also the women. And that is where that's where the real work, but it's not for everyone. Therefore, if you can't do something about this, then support with prayer, money, support, accommodation, resources, whatever you've got. Some people have second homes. I mean, we have some Christians that lease us their homes. So we have several in Rotherham. I think we have 18 beds that are in other people's homes that we run, and we run the whole house. Well, they had to have a bit of faith to do that. And that's been really good. We look after the houses well, but they had to have the courage to do that. So these are the certain things that people can do. If you can't do it, fine. No judgment, I recognize that. What are you doing then in order to bring the kingdom about? What are you doing? Rather than just turning up on a Sunday and complaining about the choice of hymns.
And there's the minister side of you as well. What are you doing? Not just not do something, but what are you doing if it's not this? And I think we each can do something. I say this frequently, and I'm never going to apologize for it. I absolutely believe that every single one of us is made by God on purpose and with purpose. Defining that purpose might take a lifetime. It might change as we go. I love how God took who you are and a little bit scared about what you're doing. And actually, yet God is there equipping you. He's taken what you learned in industry and commerce. He's taken that bit and applied it into a Christian ministry. I love when God does that because nothing's ever wasted. It's all redeemable, including the men and women that you're serving, whatever they've gone through. Evil is always evil. Bad is always bad. But God can redeem everything, which is what I love. And that's what I'm seeing through what you're saying.
Well, I've always liked the phrase, which is that your uniqueness is your calling. And uniqueness might be certain skills, or it might be experience. And of course, that changes through life. It might be certain relationships, it might be a physical location. What can you and you alone do? That's your calling. And Jesus in Mark talked about how the Pharisees were dismissive of their own parents, for example, because they were giving money away to the temple for whatever reason, but neglecting the care and the love of their parents. Well, the most unique relationship is between a parent and a child. You know, a child can only have one natural mother, one natural father. So that has to be that's an example of a priority. Physical location, if you're in Rotherham, you don't run a surfing church, right? Not in the middle of Rotherham. So what is the need? Well, the big need in Rotherham, homelessness was actually incredible loneliness on the huge housing estates that we've got. So we felt we had to do something about it and did, and are still doing. They're still doing it up there, long after I've gone, which is the right thing. Where there is a need, and where you have a unique ability to fill it, that's your calling. And I think that's fairly straightforward. We can't really avoid that. And I think I've asked God to help me with my motivation on some of those things. You know, if you are wealthy, that's a pretty rare gift in our society. Therefore, you clearly have an opportunity there. If, however, you have nothing, that's a real gift because you can be more flexible. You know, there are things that you can do when you have very little, very few ties. So I think it doesn't take much prayer to if you ask these kind of questions, to say, well, look, where's the need? What are my unique gifts? And all of a sudden, God says, do me.
I love that. Alistair, it's really encouraging to talk to you in so many ways because dignity, friendship, authenticity, just loving a person as a person rather than, like you said, when it first started, it was come to church, here's a sermon, here's some food, off you go again, which it's never going to fix a long-term problem. Yes, on a freezing cold night, maybe that's what we need to do sometimes, but it's never going to be a longer-term, wider fix for society where loneliness is the one disease that I think affects every community across the United Kingdom, probably the world in many ways, but just restricting this conversation just to the UK. Loneliness, it's an epidemic. I mean, it really is. such an issue that old folk are sort of sent to homes and we don't really go there, and there's this fragmentation of society. But that only ever really creates one overall issue. We see that as alcohol addiction or drug addiction, but its loneliness is so frequently the core, because it splits society up in a way that then leaves us not able to connect with other people, which is what I'm seeing you're doing. Is you're actually helping people to come in a community to actually have that ability to learn how to have relationships and to get on with each other.
There's a famous phrase well used across the recovery world, and it's this: show us your friends and I'll show us your future. And I think that's absolutely right. Show us your friends and I'll show us your future. Church at its best is a group of like-minded people with the same heart, want to do something really good to contribute to the kingdom of God that has already arrived, by the way. We don't bring it. It came with Christ, that's what he said. And then he sent the Holy Spirit. So our issue is not to get things going, it's to join in with what God has already started. And you're quite right. Friendships are exactly where it should go. Interestingly enough, it doesn't talk about family in the same way. Families are complicated, messy, awful, wonderful, the best and the worst things in our lives. So again, I used to always teach the same thing, that some of the best work we do is in our families, because that's where relationships should be their strongest, should be. But we all know really it's much more complex than that. But that's where the work can be done, because that's where the uniqueness of our relationships is. And then within our projects, when they work at their best, they feel like a family. And in most cases, in 3 of the 4, they eat together, they cook together, all sites clean together. So that does strike me as very biblical, a great principle, and exactly one of the risks in our modern society, that as we build bigger houses and what that actually means, we build bigger walls against to separate us from our neighbours. And you might say to me, well, you haven't seen what my neighbours are like. Well, I know, but Jesus didn't really say your neighbours who live next door, did he? He had a whole parable about that. And it was the person that was in need, wasn't it? We are neighbours to those in need. You'll never find a shortage of them.
If people want to get in touch with specifically your work with Lighthouse Homes, how do they get hold of you? Either to ask for help, ask for support, ask to support?
Well, our website is the best place. We have lighthouse.org is where you can go for that. And then the best way probably is to email us at info@lighthousehomes, all lowercase, lighthousehomes.co.uk, info@lighthousehomes.co.uk. That's the best way of doing it.
Alistair, it's been a delight chatting to you, because I think so often we see a ministry, this is what we do, this is what we are, but actually Jesus is looking always not just at what we do, but who we are and who we serve and our heart. And I'm loving just sensing just such a clarity on your heart for the people who are working for you, for the men and women that you're serving. So thank you for what you're doing. It's a tremendous delight when I can see it in such tangible ways. It's always a delight for me, and it's an honor and privilege to talk to everybody. But I love it when it's even more clear. Well,
you're not far from us in Hull, so you should come down, and I'll show you around. You can see it in real life. You can see if it's true or not.
Fair enough for that. Right. Thank you, Alistair. We will put a little bit later some links to the socials and stuff. But yeah, go and check out the website and find out more. Either if you need support, know somebody who does, or you want to support them in some way, then get in touch. Alistair, thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Been great.
Here at Pure 24/7 Radio, we have had the privilege of speaking to some amazing people with amazing stories.
Now, what about, I thought I'd go a bit further, what about goat and sheep's milk?
Yes.
Becoming quite popular. Very similar to cow's milk. So we don't use it in the first year of life, you can afterwards. And their nutrient profiles, how good they are, is pretty similar to cow's milk. Allergenicity, how often do they cause allergies? About the same. They're a bit more expensive sometimes. Yeah, it's pretty equivalent.
Yeah, we're really excited, especially excited for Josh because it's his first book and he's really passionate with that Gen. Do you say Gen Z or Gen Z? I've heard it said in
I don't know. I'm too old. I don't know.
Yeah, we're not in that age category, so we've not got a clue what they're called.
It's a pot boiler. It's a good, exciting popcorn thriller. I didn't think it was anything too special, but I think watching it at home, people will probably enjoy it more than I did going to the cinema to see it. Really good film.
I love it. You know, I walk into a cinema and I turn my phone off. Nobody can get hold of me for a couple of hours. I'm in a completely other world. Every single time I go to the cinema, and for me, it's like going to Oz. You know, it's like going to another world and escaping and relaxing, and I thoroughly enjoy it.
If you have missed any of these interviews or would like to hear them again, you can. Simply head over to our catch-up section at www.pure247radio.org. That's www.pure247radio.org.